In this module, we shall learn the limits of civil disobedience movement from the chapter Nationalism in India. You know very well that our Indian society is divided into different social groups based on caste, money, etc. Around 1930s, the people belonging to low caste, who were called the untouchables, started calling themselves as Dalits or the oppressed, which means broken. The low caste people called themselves Dalits, which means broken. Congress had ignored Dalits because they feared if they support Dalits, the conservative high caste Hindus, that is the Sanatanis, would turn against them. See, usually we go after people who have power, authority, and money. Here, the Sanatanis had all the three. So, Congress went after them and not after Dalits. So, Congress ignored Dalits. But Gandhi knew very well that we would not get freedom unless everyone joins the freedom struggle. So Gandhi wanted untouchability to be eliminated. In order to accommodate the low caste people into the main society, Gandhi took various efforts. First, he called the low caste people as Harijan, meaning children of God. So he called all the low caste people as Harijan, meaning children of God. We very well know that the low caste people weren't allowed to enter into temples nor use the public facilities like tanks, roads, or schools. So Gandhi organized satyagraha to secure them entry into temples and use public wells, tanks, roads, and schools. So this is the second effort that he took. He organized satyagraha to secure them entry into temples and use public wells, tanks, roads, and schools. Next, in order to dignify the work of the sweepers, he cleaned toilets himself. And he also persuaded the upper caste people to change their heart and give up the sin of untouchability. So these are the things that Gandhiji did to accommodate the low caste people into the main society. What are the three things? Number one, he called the low caste people as Harijan. Number two, he organized satyagraha to make them utilize all the public facilities. 3. To dignify the work of the sweepers, he cleaned his toilet by himself. Dr. Ambedkar guided all the Dalits and formed an association for them. This association was called Depressed Classes Association and it was formed in the year 1930. This association demanded reserved seats for the low caste people in the educational institutions and also separate electorate that would select Dalit members for legislative councils. They were asking for a separate electorate and not a general one. These were the demands of the Dalits. This association, led by Ambedkar, clashed with Gandhi in the second roundtable conference because these people were asking for separate electorates, to which British accepted. So British accepted to give separate electorate for Dalits. Gandhi couldn't take the idea of giving separate electorates to Dalits because Gandhi believed that separate electorates for Dalits would slow down the process of their integration into the main society. So Gandhi began a fast unto death because if they receive a separate electorate, it's again a division and not an integration of the low caste people into the society. Dr. Ambedkar ultimately accepted Gandhi's view and they were compromised. The result of compromise was the Puna Pact of September 1932. This pact agreed to give depressed classes reserved seats in provincial and central legislative councils, but general electorate and not a separate electorate. Therefore, Dalit participation in the civil disobedience movement was very less. Let's look into the second limitation of civil disobedience movement, the Muslims. Do you remember through which movement did Gandhi try to unite Hindus and Muslims? Yes, it is the non-cooperation Khilafat movement. So after the decline of this non-cooperation Khilafat movement, a larger section of Muslims felt alienated from the Congress. Not only this, Congress was visibly close to Hindu religious nationalist group like the Hindu Mahasabha. This too alienated the Muslims from Congress. The relation between Hindus and Muslims became worse when each community organized religious processions provoking religious fights. So, when one community organized any religious procession, the other community did not like it and they ended up fighting. This is called communal clash. The demands of the Muslims were separate electorate, reserved seats in the Central Assembly, and representation in proportion to population in the Muslim dominated areas like Bengal and Punjab. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who is one of the leaders of the Muslim League, was ready to give up the demand of separate electorate if they are assured with the other two demands. That is, if they are given reserved seats in the Central Assembly and representation in proportion to population in the Muslim dominated areas, he was ready to give up the demand for separate electorate. Congress and the Muslim League once again made efforts to join alliance in the year 1927, but it appeared that such a unity could only be a fake one, which means this unity was merely impossible. But still, Congress and Muslim League, they wanted a compromise and join alliance with each other. In order to work out a compromise, all parties conference was arranged in the year 1928. In the conference, M.R. Jayakar of the Hindu Mahasabha strongly opposed the negotiations of the Muslims, and all hopes for the Hindu-Muslim unity were gone permanently. Muslims feared that their culture and identity would be lost under the domination of the Hindus. They felt the majority Hindu community would dominate and suppress the minority Muslim community. Therefore, Muslim participation was less in the civil disobedience movement. Sir Muhammad Iqbal, the president of the Muslim League, stated the importance of separate electorate for the minority Muslims in his speech in 1930. He said they needed a separate electorate to safeguard their political interest, their culture, their religion, literature, thought, and identity. He also stated that this is not against nationalism, as India is a land of racial and religious variety. Through his speech, Muhammad Iqbal justified the demand for separate electorate for the Muslims. These are the few possible questions that can be asked from this session. If you fail to answer any, please do recheck the module and read your text.